invocation and pledge. Let's pray. Father, we are thankful for the day you've given us. We're thankful for your love and your mercy. We're thankful, Father, for just these who are willing to come tonight and just to conduct the business of the village. We pray, Father, that you would grant us wisdom and grant us strength and patience. Father, we pray for the residents of our community. We pray that you might grant them mercy. We love and praise you in your name. Amen. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Council, thank you for coming. Mr. Gilpin, could you call the roll, please?
Ms. Ross. Here. Mr. Noble. Here. Ms. Brown.
Here.
Mr. Coogan. Here. Ms. Shepherd.
Here.
Ms. Hallfield.
Here.
All right. Next item on the agenda is approval of minutes of our regular October meeting of October 11, 2018. I trust you all have seen those. If there's no corrections, I would entertain a motion to accept those as read.
I make a motion to approve the October 11th, 2018 meeting minutes.
Thanks, Ms. Hollingfield. Do I hear a second?
I second that.
Thank you, Mr. Coogan. Could you call a roll, please, Mr. Gilpin?
Mr. Coogan? Yes. Ms. Shepherd?
Yes.
Ms. Hallfield?
Yes.
Ms. Ross?
Yes.
Mr. Noble? Yes. Ms. Brown?
Yes.
Okay. Next up is we have on communications. We have a visitor tonight. We have Ms. Kathy Angel representing Clement County Senior Services. So if you would like to come up to the podium, Kathy. And
I'm here tonight on behalf of Claremont Senior Services, and we have a new aspect of our volunteer department, and it is volunteer guardianship. And this affects all of us in the county, not just Batavia, but Bethel too, as there's a lot of seniors that are incapable of making their own decisions, and they don't have somebody that can help make them for them. So what the powers to be are turning to is volunteer guardianship, actually. And I'm going to pass out one of these to each of you. This is providing some education for you on what is required to become a volunteer guardian. One of the things that we like to make sure everybody knows is that there is no financial involved. You would only be a guardian of person. And that pretty much means you would help make healthcare type decisions. What we require is a one-time per month visit. And sometimes you would be required, I'm sorry, but I just kind of counted what was on the council. So you can look in there and find out what Claremont Senior Services requires to become a volunteer guardian. One of the things is 21 years of age. You need to be able to pass a few background checks. You can look in there and find some different things. This is a very new project for us, and currently we have 2 volunteers. We have a couple more that just sent in applications, and we're pretty excited to get along with this, because currently what happens if somebody doesn't have a guardian that they can rely on, attorneys do that. And so there are a lot of attorneys in our county that are carrying a pretty big caseload of guardians for people. We require 1 hour a month. The state of Ohio actually requires like 1 hour every 3 months, spending time with this person that people are guardians over. So there's an initial 6-hour training that is required by the state. It is online, and then you would get a certificate, and then you would start the process. So it's for a person that loves seniors, that has a lot of compassion, and that is willing to donate some of their time each month. Since I came over here to do a presentation, I thought I'd kind of take advantage of it, and so I wanted to give you something else. Every year, I don't know if you all know this, but we have an Adopt a Senior program. We help over 700 seniors in Claremont County each Christmas to receive gifts that wouldn't normally get gifts because they have little family, or if they do have family, maybe they aren't able to support them with Christmas presents. And so we turn to the community to help. And I have attached some papers on there that'll tell you different ways you can help. But so far this year, we've adopted out 400 seniors, and we still have some waiting, and then we have other means of how they can receive some gifts. Now, I do have some extras of these if you would like.
Absolutely, thank you.
You're welcome. Does anyone have any questions?
Kathy, I know that Bonnie Meeks and I was talking, this is done in other, the guardianship program is done in other counties, it's been done for some time.
Yes.
It's new to our county.
Yes.
Do we have a lot of residents in the village and in the township that would need a guardian?
That I don't really know for sure how many. What we are going to start doing is working with attorneys and finding out who is on some of their caseloads, but we're trying to get it to where it is friendly with where you live. So, for example, we might try to hook up with Morris, Sunrise, Locust Ridge, and then these people would either already be placed in a nursing facility, and usually they can't make their own decisions. You know, they have to have somebody there. Some of them can't really communicate, period. There's just different scenarios. So we're just kind of embarking on this, and it's all new to us. So we'll be learning together.
Sounds like a great thing.
Yes, it does.
All right.
Do you have a target number of guardians that you're trying to reach?
Actually, we don't, but if we put on one a month, which doesn't sound like a lot, but it is a lot compared to where we're starting at, that would add up pretty quick. Through our agency, if we included, I gave you guys, first of all, also a brochure on our volunteer department. Inside this brochure, it would tell you everything we offer through volunteer services. If we included the groups that help, like do yard work and stuff in the county, we have over 500 volunteers. That has taken, quite a few years to build up to that. We have been established for going toward 50 years. We are not part of the Claremont County offices. I don't know if you guys know that. We're a private organization. And so we are nonprofit, and we rely on tax dollars and different types of funding sources. So we just plan on continuing, and I'm sure long after I'm gone, it'll still be going on.
Well, thank you, Kathy, for coming on. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, and if you guys have any questions or need further information, please do call me.
Okay. Thank you, Kathy.
Thank you.
Also under communications, I would like to introduce Mr. John Norman and Mr. Kenny Parsons to come forward, please, with the American Legion. And speak at us.
I'll do mine first. I come here to ask permission to use for our annual Christmas program, December 1st, 10 to 4, I think is what we membership agreed to go to. We could use the street detail up there.
From 10 to 4?
10 to 4.
Is that longer than normal, or is that the same?
That's
It's about the same as weather permitted too. If it's a little
The candy will be out there by 2:33. Depends on how much candy he bought.
Right.
I got 2,500 pieces. Forever.
Every year, we usually do a vote on this, council, so if somebody would like to make a motion that,
I make a motion that we approve for the American Legion to do what they're asking on December 1st.
we call it the boot.
It's for the needy families.
Right.
Young kids, needy families.
All right, so Ms. Hollifield made the motion, and Mr. Coogan seconded. Mr. Good, would you call the roll on that?
Mr. Coogan?
Yes.
Ms. Shepherd?
Yes.
Ms. Hallfield?
Yes.
Ms. Ross?
Yes.
Mr. Noble?
Yes.
Ms. Brown?
Yes.
So that is approved. Thank you guys so much for your work. I know you help a lot of needy kids for that time.
We'll be glad to hear about that.
And as always, I'll have an officer down there for you all.
Are you still collecting stuffed animals as you do every year?
Yes, we are.
Okay.
Yes, we are. Actually, we need about 160 of those for the VA home. We're going to go up there on the 12th of December.
12th of December, okay.
You want them to be new stuffed animals?
Like for them to be new, yes, because we've had problems with the used ones in the past. They've got mold or something on them, and it just contaminates the whole batch.
Right. Okay.
On top of this, I had Mr. Norman here also for the banners discussion.
All right.
And what we're,
Go ahead, Mr. Coogan.
yeah, what we're trying to do is change out the banners right now from the ones that are currently there. I'm in the process of trying to get a few more spots right now, and we're going to discuss this amongst us and try to get you a few more sometime.
We actually want to invite Mr. Merman and Mr. Parsons back for
For the 4th of December.
the 4th of December. We're going to have a Public Works
Right, properties.
Parks and Village property meeting. We'd like to have you guys here if you could be here. What was the time on that?
6:30.
6:30 on the 4th of December?
Monday,
It's a Tuesday.
Tuesday.
Tuesday, yeah.
We'd like to have you here so we could discuss it there with you guys.
Gosh.
It's like I was telling Brian that I have a list, there's like 20-something names on the list, but some of them have 2 or 3 people that they want to get up there. Father, brother, son, whatever.
Okay.
And so anyway, I told him that we're still communicating about getting some additional polls.
Yeah.
So hopefully we can get that resolved.
So, yeah.
Yes, I'm going to call them and have them go ahead and put the order in to have the banners printed up and have ready, just...
So when they go back up in the spring,
Yeah, and they're gonna come down.
sometime after Veterans Day.
It'll be between Veterans Day and getting ready for the Christmas lights, so it'll go up after Thanksgiving.
We'd like to have all that up before Thanksgiving, so.
And then come and pick them up from you so we can store them up there.
Yeah, we'll let you know when they're ready.
Okay, that sounds good.
And thank you, veterans, for your service.
Thank you.
Thanks, John. Thanks, Kenny.
All right, I think that's the last of our communications. That brings us to public input. Is there any public input this evening? All right, if not, we'll move on to administration and committee reports. First is myself. And we have the mayor's court report for the month of, this says September, but I hope it's October.
I don't know if it got put in there. I don't see it on mine.
Yeah, no, this is incorrect.
That's got to be September because it's got the bigger sign on it.
Yeah, it's got the bigger side. So we'll have to make that report.
Made it through.
We'll have to make that report next month. My apologies. Also, I wanted to make mention that on November 30th, that Friday before the down Christmas, we'll be having our, I believe it's our 3rd annual Christmas tree lighting at the Grant Memorial Building, which will be beginning at 6:30. It's always been well attended and a lot of fun. Big crowds out there for that, so that's November 30th, that Friday evening, 6:30 at the Grant Memorial Building. We'll have Christmas tree lighting, we'll have some cookies and hot chocolate, and I already talked to the Midway Theater is going to be open for a free movie for everyone, so it's always a good time. So put that on your calendars and come out, enjoy it. Hopefully it'll snow.
What about the Historical Society? Are they planning on participating?
No, it will not be open. That evening, it will not be open. And I believe that's all I have. Mr. Dotson, our village administrator.
Thank you. The project at Bone and Union is proceeding. They poured concrete today for the sidewalks, and that will proceed. It should be completed, fully completed at some point next week. So that's good news. The playground equipment for the first phase of our playground addition has been ordered, and that's there's still a chance that we can see that arrive this fall. It just depends on how weather proceeds here in the next month. So I think that's all I have.
All right, thanks. Fiscal Officer, Mr. Gilpin?
A couple things. We have ordinance 1897 later in the meeting, and we reviewed this at Finance last night. It's amended appropriations, just one line item. We'll be adding $100,000 to the bulk electric purchase line because that line item will not make it through the year. Our electric sales have been higher than what was budgeted for the year, so we need to increase that line item. And just want to mention that I'll be attending some year-end UAN software update training first part of December. It'd be an 8-hour webinar. I'll take it, I won't have to travel. I'll do it right here online. Also, working on the 2019 temporary appropriations that Finance will review at the next meeting. And then lastly, I received an email from Ms. Brown earlier today with a number of different questions that I responded to, and then she responded back and asked me if I would review these at this evening's meeting. So I would like to go over this list of questions and answers per Ms. Brown's request. So her first question was, will the liquor bring in any additional revenue to the village, and if so, can it be used for police? My response to that was, we receive 35% of the cost of the liquor permit fees annually. By law, that must be deposited into the general fund. We currently receive $939.40 per year for the permits that are currently on file. Her second question was, if we quit paying for the park, how long would the trust be able to support it in addition to the mowing? My answer was, as far as park maintenance is concerned, we currently budget $6,000 per year for maintenance costs, so the Burke Trust could pay for that for many years if they agreed to do so. The trust typically supplies $8,000 per year in addition to what the village pays for. Her third question was, if we have the ball field, how much will be saved by letting it go? My response was, we own fields 1 and 2. However, they are part of Burke Park that was set up by the trust and cannot be sold. Our only cost of mowing them, which is part of the $8,000 mentioned above. The Sports Association pays for all other operating costs. Her fourth question was, can we quickly get the county to release the sewer plant or take it back, and what savings would be if it's taken back? My response was, the former sewer plant property at some point will be returned to the village, I assume. The village could then sell the property, but the proceeds would be restricted and thus not available for police use. Our fifth question was, can we stop the process for park updates now? My answer was, the purchase of the playground equipment is well underway, as Mr. Dotson just reported. They have processed the purchase order and the equipment is being produced already. I will be cutting the check in the next couple days, so it's too late to stop on that project. Number 6 was, can we save on insurance by higher deductibles or employee paying out of pocket? My response was, as far as health insurance goes, council can certainly adopt anything they want. That being said, we recently lost one of our linemen, and the other lineman let us know this week that he is considering a move because the job market is so competitive that our employee package is no longer considered to be a good one. The employee deductibles are scheduled to increase 50% in 2019, along with other increased employee costs of the health care insurance package. Our question number 7 was, how long without the tax can we fund full-time police with the current balance, and how long without the tax can we fund part-time police? My response was, I previously calculated that the general fund would drop below our minimum threshold of $500,000 in the third quarter of 2019 with the absence of the income tax and without making staff reductions in the police department. As far as how long we could go with the part-time department, that would depend on the number of employees. I would need more information on the staffing levels in order to answer that portion of the question. Number 8, are there any projects currently coming out of the general fund that we can stop to save money for police? My response was there are no active projects that can be stopped at this point, but of course any thoughts of future projects will be put on permanent hold immediately. Number 9, can we sell the Grant Memorial Building as it is to a real permanent buyer? My response was this is more of an Emily question, but as I understand it, the deed restrictions severely limit our options, and the historical group is one of the very few entities we can pass it on to, which is good because it at least gets us out from under the maintenance costs of a building we no longer need. Number 10 was, do we know what other towns do to generate funds? Can we do any tax breaks for businesses to entice them here? If there were a tax break, how will we determine its size of the business, profits, employees, etc.? My response was all other villages have enacted an income tax that has not been challenged on a repeal, so they're in good shape. We can create TIF or JED districts if the opportunity is there to help bring new businesses into the village. The parameters of any tax break are negotiable between the village and the businesses. Question number 11 was, can we have a business that gives the village a profit that we would own? Why or why not? And my response was, we're not permitted to operate a business venture with taxpayer money for profit. As with utilities, any monies received from any source are restricted in use to that which created the revenue, so no new money would be available to the police department. Question 12 was, if we annexed in every property we could, would there be any benefit as far as tax revenue? My response was, any annexation would have to be voluntary by the property owner in order for the village to realize additional revenue. Forced annexation, called Type 2, dictates that the real estate tax monies remain with the former jurisdiction, so the only way for the village to gain revenue under that scenario would be if we had an income tax. Question 13 was, how much would an auxiliary police force of 5 cost, and is there any way to ensure full-time coverage with this? And my response was, the village dismantled their auxiliary department a few years ago due to new state regulations that require a considerable amount of paperwork and expense to continue it. We would have to investigate and estimate a new cost based on the new regulations that were previously deemed by Chief Plank to be too difficult and costly to continue. Question 14 was, if we became a speed trap, would the additional ticket revenue be enough to pay for police? My response was that I would imagine that literally thousands of tickets would have to be written in order to replace the income tax, but along with that high number of tickets would also incur additional overtime for court appearances, so it would be difficult to easily gauge how many tickets it would actually take to generate enough revenue. I know there's a new program that allows for a company to supply equipment for the police department to use to issue lots of speeding tickets that is administered by that company. Higginsport uses it, and New Richmond is in the process of implementing it in the very near future, but I have no idea how much actual revenue it produces. Our question 15 was, do we have any parades scheduled that we can have the police costs covered by those wanting the parade? My response was just the Down Home Christmas Parade and Homecoming Parade are paid for by the village. I don't know what might happen to those parades if someone else had to pay for the security costs, but it certainly could be looked at. The outside cost of the Homecoming Parade was $735. And her last question was sheriff cost and coverage options for full-time coverage. My response was that Mr. Noble reported at Finance Committee meeting last evening that he had contacted the sheriff's office for a quote. I think he may have some information on that at tonight's meeting. So that was the entire list. So that's all I've got.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Gilpin. I think a speed camera could really pay for a lot.
You could also pay a lawsuit.
I know. Just enough said. Next up is our solicitor, Ms. Supinger.
The only item I have to report on is that we do have all of the easement documents completed for the utility relocation program on Plain Street. So the next step will be to notify affected property owners. We're going to send copies of the easements to all of them, along with a cover letter explaining the easements, and then I'll work with Travis to schedule kind of like a public meeting where anyone who has questions about them can come in. If they want to execute their easements that night, we can do this. Then have a notary available so that we get those all done. And just By way of background on this project's been in the works for a couple of years now, but essentially with all the utility tie-ins that we have, especially on Plain Street, there are no existing easements for those. They just kind of all got hooked up, which is common for most utility things. A lot of times that's people just hooked up, didn't worry about obtaining the easement. If you look now, all utility companies are requiring recorded easements for those types of things. Utilities will be relocated from the Plain Street side to the rear side of the buildings, and the easements are for the utility line hookups in most instances. So, that's all I have.
All right, thanks. Chief of Police, Chief Blank.
For the month of October, we had 198 calls answered, 133 offense reports, 11 incident reports, 15 crashes. We had 51 traffic arrests, 49 traffic warnings. Jump around the adult arrests, we had 12. Jump down here, out of county warrants 2. We served 4 papers. Special details was 93. We assisted other departments 59 times. We wrote 304 supplements to reports. We wrote 37 reports and closed 3 reports with an arrest, and we closed other reports with misdemeanor, 15 other reports with misdemeanor referrals. I'm going to jump down here. The election day, I worked the election day, spent most of my time in between both of the 2 buildings, the middle school and the high school. There's a new law out requiring an officer from each agency, each jurisdiction to be ready for anything that would happen at a polling place. And so what that is just kind of make myself available. The Secretary of State didn't really put out that there shall be an officer at each polling location, but he would just, highly stress that there is one. So I felt that myself, between both buildings for that day was enough. So we also served a search warrant up on Northeast Street, 2 locations. Didn't really net a whole lot, but I think it woke a few people up. So I'm hoping that I've got some reports that say the traffic slowed down up there. Other report is that anything new other than more people coming in. So, that's just up to interpretation. That one report could be interpretation. Everybody else is saying that it's slowed up there. But we'll keep hammering at it. Downtown Christmas Parade on December 1st at 5:30 p.m. We'll get with Travis. We'll use his employees to help us with the police department side of it and traffic direction for that. Officer Houch will be in his zone in the next 2 weeks, and I wanted to tell you that we're going to take delivery of a new car tomorrow. The check will be cut tomorrow, and I will take some up there to Lebanon Ford to go get that 2018 Ford Explorer. And the last thing I had was Trick or Treat was decent success. I mean, we had some rain, but it didn't stop a whole lot of people. I don't think we had droves of people, but we did have a decent outcome. And then there were two kids, I believe, that were struck up in Mount Old the night before at their trick or treat. So just wanted to let you know. And that's all I have.
Chief, I guess we should point out, I think it's twice now that the tornado sirens have gone off.
But they don't know why.
And the county's working on that. We have no control of that. That's been county-wide.
That's county. Every siren in the county has gone off. And John Cascaden is the director of the communications center. I spoke with him at the chief's meeting last Thursday, and he didn't know why.
That'll be the pesky Russians.
Could be. Some collusions in there.
I think it's Norwegians.
All right, thanks, Chief. I was going to say that at the Holy House that night, we had 900 come through there. So, that's not too bad for a rainy night. So, I was glad the mayor held his ground there and kept it on October 31st.
Yes, I am too.
Rain has never appeared trick-or-treating, ever.
Okay, next up is our Safety Committee Chair, Ms. Hollyfield.
We had a safety committee meeting on October 25th, and just a couple of things that Chief spoke about was that we were awarded a a vest for one of our officers through the vest grant program, $160 vest. We were able to get that for, was it Officer Houchin?
Yes.
Officer Houchin for free. We also discussed the golf carts ordinance, and that is underway. I believe Sergeant Teague spoke to that, and just some golf cart, mini truck, utility vehicle, just some things that are going to be mandatory if you want to have a golf cart or one of those other items in the village. And the chief covered everything else that we spoke about. And we do not have the next meeting scheduled. Do we need to do that at this time?
We probably should. November 4th is pretty busy. What time is all that?
How about
I'm sorry,
December 4th?
December 4th.
Finance is at 5:30 on the 4th.
And then we have,
Personal property is 6:30.
we probably have to set a different night then.
December.
The 5th is Mayor's Court.
How about the 12th?
The 12th would work.
We'll say the 12th at 5:30. And maybe by that time we might have more on our golf cart legislation.
Is there a meeting set for the 13th before village council? Could we do it on the 13th before regular council?
We could if everybody could be here by 4:30.
Is that a problem for anybody on safety committee?
I'll be here.
I don't think I have anything.
Is it easier for you if we keep it on the date the mayor suggested?
I might be like 5 minutes
We'll
later.
just keep it then, 12:12.
It does.
at what's good for you, 5:30?
Yeah, it doesn't matter. I mean, I can get here. I
No,
just.
that's all right. We'll just keep it.
Let's just say it's the 12th at 5:30 for our safety meeting.
Got it.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
I want to go back and read it. I just want to make sure that everybody knows that, we don't have, golf carts are still not supposed to be on the street. We're talking about legislation for it, so just making that clear. There's a lot that has to go on before we can start having a golf cart palooza on the streets of Bethel. So, just want to state that. Next up is our Finance Committee Chair, Ms. Shepherd.
Okay, we met yesterday evening and we reviewed the revenue, which Mr. Wilpin has already touched on. I do want to add that we discussed whether or not we were going to continue with the purchase of the new cruiser, and we couldn't back out of that, and the title for it arrived today. And it is the first cruiser in 11 years that has been purchased from nothing but police funds. And the first new one that we've had in 5 years. We've always had to purchase used ones. Also, Mr. Dotson mentioned last night that our water billing has gone down 25% as of him hiring the leak detectors. And so our water usage has gone down 25% over the course of the few months that we've had that. And we talked about the playground equipment, and I'm sorry, you're going to have to refresh my memory on the second phase of that.
So the second phase is it's a conservation, land and conservation fund grant. It's a state grant. It's in the same family of grants that our Nature Works grant is, but there's more money available for that. It's a minimum of $100,000 project scope, so you have to have a project of at least $100,000, and they will match half of that. So the project that we have that's to be voted on this evening is right at that minimum threshold, and that would be the 2 to 5 playground area with some 4 canopies that will be dispersed around both sections of the new playground equipment, and those will have a bench under each. So that is, the deadline to apply for that grant is next Thursday or Friday. That would be a 2019 grant, so that would be 2019 funds.
Do we need to make a motion to allow you to go ahead and do that tonight?
There's legislation for that, yes.
Okay. All right then. And our next meeting is December the 4th in council chambers at 5:30.
All right, thanks, Ms. Shepherd. Next up is our Parks and Village Property Chair, Mr. Coogan.
We met yesterday, right after finance, and We discussed, again, the grant for the park playground equipment. And additionally, we discussed the condition of the streets and loops within the village. On top of this, we also discussed the bid for Grant Memorial. This may be going through as early as next Thursday, from what I understand. And we discussed also veterans banners again, brought that issue back up. Again, we're going to be discussing this a little bit more in detail at our next meeting on the 4th of December with Mr. Mormont.
Okay, that's it. All right, thanks. Next up is our Brook Trust Chair, Ms. Ross.
So we met just prior to this meeting today, about 4:45. We discussed the community grant that was brought up in council, I believe in July is when we discussed it. So we discussed the format of the grant and how we would want the application to go. We discussed possibility of how we would score it, and I think that we should have this ready for council's approval at the next council meeting.
Okay. We didn't set another meeting?
We did not set a meeting as of yet, because I think we're going to set a meeting in January. If council does approve this in December, then we're going to set a meeting in January as a joint meeting with the commission.
Right. Okay, thanks, Ms. Ross. Next up, our Personnel Committee Chair, Ms. Brown.
We met at 7 p.m., well, 6, yeah, I guess it was 7, for Personnel Committee on October 25th, and we discussed the need for employee reviews, and there was already something in the works from prior council, and Travis presented one that looked very nice to most of us. The one thing that we need to meet again about is discussing that for all employees, not just non-salary employees. So if we could set a meeting, maybe December 12th, and keep it going.
At 6:30?
Okay.
So December 12th at 6:30, we'll have another Personnel Committee meeting. Anything else, Ms. Brennan?
No.
Okay, that brings us to call of members, and we're going to start with you, Mr. Coogan.
I spent the day down in the voting area, and I talked to a lot of our citizens, and there seemed to be a lot of animosity towards a lot of things, and I tried to combat it as best I could, showing them the positive side of things and discussing the issues on the positive side, trying to keep everything positive, telling them not to deal with old business, bring in new business, and still the animosity was there. I worked very tirelessly towards this. I wanted very much for the citizens to see what the ramifications of a repeal on that tax will be, and what the funding will be. Funding will be drastically dropped, and we're looking at cutting a lot of things, okay? Anyways, this is pretty near and dear to me. I kind of reverted my position, my original position, when I first took a look at it. I hated the thought of a new tax. Since I got into this office, I saw the need for the tax and the reasoning for it, and still, old feelings come up. And I try to help anybody I can sort through these feelings, and unfortunately, I can't combat all that. And Mr. Noble assisted me quite a bit, extensively, and the one positive thing is that we brought alcohol into the village, and we're currently working on getting a major business in here, a major restaurant, and hopefully working with the Legion to work on some nonprofit type stuff for them with the park and whatever's available at our disposal. Okay?
Yes, you and Mr. Noble worked very hard on the alcohol initiatives, and we appreciate that. I mean, because you guys made a great step in helping us get a new business in the town, and it's very nice. And hopefully even maybe help the Legion out a little bit if we could ever get a festival that we could use their assistance on. So thank you. for doing that, both of you, so.
And
for the residents that voted for it.
Yeah, I also want to thank Mr. Mormon. He helped us in signature gathering.
Oh, good, I didn't even look at it.
Yeah.
All right, well, thank you. Next up is Ms. Shepherd.
I also want to thank Mr. Mormon, the Legion, for helping us on that, and these two men here that did stand all day long up here trying to prevent the repeal of the income tax. Some of the people have spoken, but I'm not so sure that the few number of people that have spoken truly represent what the Village of Bethel, the people that didn't vote. I don't think that the few people that did vote truly represent the people that did not vote. So we just have to, I don't know what we're going to do from here on out. It's just, Tuesday was a sad day for the Village of Bethel.
Agreed.
Because united we stand, but divided we fall. That's all I have to say.
All right, thanks, Ms. Shepherd. Ms. Hargan?
Thank you to Brian and Jay and gentlemen. Thank you. And Janessa for fielding all those questions and sending them to Bill. I think that the answers that Bill was able to give, proves that even all of the questions that were asked to you, the money that it would save, does not equal even one police officer. So as far as the income tax, it is a necessary evil. It is what is needed, not what is wanted. And I will have to say that when it comes time, I will have to do what is best for our village, whether that is what the voters wanted or what the voters did not want. And I agree with Ms. Shepherd when it was not a good representation of our village coming out in drones to support our village. It was people coming out to vote something down, whether it be pushed by money or pushed by vengeance or pushed by animosity. I don't believe that everyone understands what the income tax is needed for and what it's being used for. So that's all I'm going to say.
All right, thanks, Ms. Hoffeld. Next up is Ms. Ross.
So, thank you. Just to echo that, the income tax is a source of conversation in my household. As our household voted to keep it, police, for many different reasons in my household, are very important. So I stand behind the police department. However, it's hard not to stand behind the voters too. But I'm not happy with the number of voters that did not come out for whatever reason. And as I didn't stand all day, as these two gentlemen did, to hear the complaints or the concerns or of the citizens that came through there, it's hard for me to imagine that no matter what the concerns are, that no one wants to have police. Did not have a police department. So, I don't know, what the future holds for us, so I guess we'll try to figure it out as a council together. That's all we're going to be able to do, and I think that we all have some very good ideas, and that we're all very passionate, even though sometimes it's over here. I think that our passion should unite us to figure out a good way to hopefully come up to a resolution for this. And then, not so heavy, I'm very excited about Downtown Christmas. It's my favorite time of year in the village. So I will be at the tree lighting for the third year in a row. I volunteered to help out around the day, so I'm very excited about it. So hopefully I'll see everybody out there. So.
All right, thanks, Mr. Ross. Mr. Noble?
Thank you. Thank everybody for coming tonight. Basically, I guess the only thing that I would like to do, and I want to do it appropriately, but and it's just for educational purposes, for discussion purposes, but I would like to find out, because Bill had made a comment that referred to me about the sheriff department, and I want to see what all my fellow council members would like to do, or how we should do it, or if they're even interested. But I did talk to one of the gentlemen, or one of the officers down at the sheriff's department today, and, I told him that yesterday in our finance committee meeting, it was a little rough, and maybe things were misunderstood on how this came about, and he said that if invited, that way I'm not in this situation, that he would have a presentation with Q&A if we could invite him and schedule something, and I wanted to see if that was something that we were interested in looking into for contrast between return on investment and what it would look like. That way, it's not something that we have to do, it's just something, maybe it would be a transparency type situation where it would close a lot of questions out in the village on why we do or don't have that kind of situation with the sheriff. So,
I would be interested in maybe inviting that gentleman to Finance Committee and going from there.
I was thinking that possibly it should go through safety first.
Well, can I interject just for a second on that one? The reason why I want to interject on that is because this presentation and question and answer thing, he's going to be pulling in people from the Human Resources Department, his road detail department, some of the extra departments for SWAT and K-9, he's going to pull in himself. It's going to be a big to-do when he does this, and I would like the professional courtesy to have a one-time presentation. And I think it's very important because this is a very big deal, and I think all of us should be involved. I don't think it should go to committee to committee. I think it's...
Well, am I going to defer this to Mrs. Superintendent?
Everybody, but then it goes to safety to discuss what happened.
Yes.
But is that not doing it backwards?
It's up to council, however they would.
I mean, we don't have to make a decision or anything. I'm just saying if it's something interesting, then we can refer it to safety to talk about. Then we can refer it to finance. It's just an initial presentation. I think that we should be involved.
Can I just clarify, are you talking about seeing if fiscally, if it would be responsible to use the sheriff's department to police our village instead of our own police department? Okay, I just wanted to clarify exactly what the presentation was going to be.
And that's why I'm suggesting that it start first in, that it should go through our committees first. Because if it dies in committee, then it's not going to be put towards, it's not going to come towards council.
To safety probably first. I mean, it's just the way.
I mean, that's just the way we do our business.
And safety if safety approves of it, it's going to go to a full council then, so.
Well, I think we'd have to go to finance first for him to review the figures.
Perhaps.
Is there a way to record what is brought to safety so that they don't have to come in and redo it and just play it for council?
It should be recorded. It's on this.
Well, if I have like presentations, I would hope that they could attach something.
Everyone on council can attend that safety meeting if they so choose. It's just, we don't speak, we just listen.
I want to do it properly, but at the same time, I think it's an educational piece that way.
Yeah.
And we definitely need the education, for sure.
All right.
I make a motion to
invite them to safety.
Have safety or someone to invite them to a safety committee meeting.
Okay. We have a motion on the floor.
I'll second that.
Any more discussion? All right, Mr. Gilpin, call the roll.
Mr. Coogan?
Yes.
Ms. Shepherd?
Yes.
Ms. Hallfield?
Yes.
Ms. Ross?
Yes.
Mr. Noble?
Yes.
Ms. Brown?
Yes.
That's all I have tonight. Thank you.
Do you want that to happen before the December 12th meeting?
Probably have to give them some notice.
Yeah, I'd say we'll give them some
I think
notice.
December 12th should be fine, unless that's...
Well, here's my question, though. We're going to have to deal with the repeal prior to December 12th.
I think that this, if I may, I think that this option, I don't think it would really hinge on our decision on the repeal. Because if
It's information that
that's a
needs to be
return on
discussed.
investment, it doesn't matter if we have money or we don't have money, you know.
I agree.
So it don't have anything to do with that.
No.
So.
It would strictly be a fact-finding mission at this point in time.
Right, so I mean, we could even probably do it in the we might even be able to push it until January, I don't know.
Yeah, right. I agree. No, all right.
No worry.
Okay. Thanks, Mr. Noble. Ms. Brown?
If you thought the questions were over.
You had a question there.
I
think you did really good on this.
I personally would like to try to answer as many questions for the public tonight and for ourselves, because this is not a light decision. It has kept me up. I woke up in the middle of the night with vomit coming up. I mean, it is not an easy decision. And I've listened to people in the village, and I've listened to people outside the village who are now in the same exact boat that was pushed for the village, with no police coverage in the township, which also puts a new burden upon the village, the fact there are no cops in the township. The fact that the high school is not in the village. How much response time? I don't think we can find out how long it takes to get someplace, because they don't know where they would be when they got that call. So I continue to ask questions. But I do want to thank Jay, I want to thank Brian, I want to thank you all for your service. I appreciate it very much. One question I have, because I wasn't on council when this came up before, reinstating the tax. I would like to know when that has to be done. If it's not reinstated, how long would it take to replace it if we needed to, if like we said, okay, I'm not voting on this now, it's a no, and then we realized, okay, we're really getting in a bind, how long does it take to put it back on?
To keep it continuous, you have to, once the vote is certified, you have 5 days to reinstate it.
Okay. And then if it was to
If I understood the second part of your question correctly, if no action were taken now, say if you're asking, say, a year from now, for instance, if that were to occur, it's a 6-month implementation timeframe.
Okay. And as far as currently, it is 100% goes to the police department. So if no action was taken now and we had to put a new one on, or somebody did, then would we have to go through the steps to earmark that 100% for the police again? Or would that just carry over?
Well, on paper now, it's not earmarked for police. The municipal income tax is merely deposited into the general fund. But by nature of the fact that their budget is $545,000 and that the income tax generates roughly $300,000, by that nature alone says that the income tax pays for just roughly a little over 50% of their budget, which is where that terminology comes from, that the police department gets all of the income tax and then some.
Okay. All right, question 1 is done. Crime rates. Did we see an uptick when we were only a part-time force? What's the most frequent crime that we have in our village currently? Because I'm sure we have quite a bit. I see you guys out quite a bit with your lights on. And do we currently dispense Narcan? And if so, how many lives have we saved as a police force doing so that will be impacted?
I would say theft is probably our number one. And Narcan, we don't. The life squad, the fire department has Narcan.
Okay.
We are normally a minute, we could be there a minute before them, we could be there a minute after the fire department. So it's really about a minute or two, kind of a response difference. So Narcan has a shelf life, and it also, you have to keep it at a constant temperature. So if it gets left in a cruiser in the middle of winter, it's going to freeze, making it no longer any good. If it's left in a hot car, it's probably not going to be any good there still. So, the squads are always inside their fire department when they're not on a run. So they are a constant temperature. So, plus there's an expense to it, and the township absorbs that. And so, also want to get back with you too on the high school. There is a deputy in the high school. He's there Monday through Friday, 8-hour shifts. He's on a 10-month contract with the school, meaning the 2 months of the summer he's going to revert back to Batavia to be a sheriff's deputy out in the county. And then Deputy Pike, he currently works 36 hours one week and 24 the next. And that gets him to his pay, his 80-hour pay period. And so I think he has a short night, so he probably works, probably a 32-hour week and then a 24 the next.
All right.
So.
And may I ask the first question? Was there, when we had a part-time police force, did you notice
an uptick,
an increase?
It's constant. It's, sometimes in the winter months you have a little bit of downtime. But our people, our people that are out in the middle of the night are the same people, the same 365 days in the year, and it's constant. So I can't really say we experience any downtick or uptick. It's just a
Constant.
It's just a constant, yeah.
Okay. Next thing that came up, because I'm asking everything that's ever been asked of me. Sorry, I do apologize. It's kind of lengthy, but salary. If we currently froze salaries as is, how long would it take for us to pay for a police department? And would that even be feasible?
What you mean by?
So like, if nobody ever gets a raise again, how long until you can pay for a cop or a police department? Basically, they're saying you factor in the savings that
So you're wanting us to save money and then be able to pay for 1 year. Say it takes us 5 years to save that money, then we pay for them for 1 year, and then it takes us 5 years, and then we pay for them another year.
Yep.
So we've got
about the cost of living raises and finance.
And it raised how much?
In general terms, it's usually cost of living raises are in the neighborhood of a total cost of $20,000 annually. They have five, for all employees. They have 5 employees out of probably 20. So that's 20%. So $4,000 a year, take you about 15 to 20 years to realize the cost of one full-time patrol officer at that rate.
So aren't some of those employees get out of different funds though?
Right,
That's what I said, that only 4,000 of the 20,000.
Right, that's why I was backing it down to their number.
Which would fall to their backup question to me, which was, if everybody who was high salary stepped down, could you fund your police force? Exactly. I've asked these questions before, and I do apologize that it's repetitive.
That's okay. No, it needs to be spoken.
I had the same thing said to me by a former police officer today. He wanted us to maybe eliminate our electric department so we could fund our police department. Well, that's illegal. Electric funds cannot be used for a police department. There's only, police department funds have to come out of the general fund. There's only 2 ways to do it. It's either a levy or it's an income tax.
Well,
It's pretty basic.
I'm assuming that if we do away with our electric department and Duke stepped in, or AEP, they're probably not going to take their money and fund their police department. Unless, assuming that the village residents still want to have electricity.
Yeah, maybe not.
So I got another, zoning. Could we make our zoning violations tougher, increase the cost to those zoning violations, and fund the police department through basically kind of like a speed trap, only with zoning?
We have issued, we've had quite a number of, we've had a higher than normal number of zoning permits issued this year. And that amounts to about $4,000. So, we would have to, our fees would be incredibly high.
You pay for a violation?
No, these are like for building a shed, building a deck.
But if you get like a zoning violation, there's not a
No, a code enforcement, no.
Okay.
Which is what they're wanting, is
Yeah, that's what I
like a
was-
code enforcement, or you could
Okay.
charge $250, whatever, I don't know what the cost would be.
It may be time to look at the zoning fees that we have, but it's not going to be enough to raise any sort of substantial revenue.
And does the zoning kill the business in our village, the way it's set up, or is it not?
No, zoning's in place to protect business.
Right.
That's why it's there. So, some people don't see it that way, but that's why it's there, for sure.
And the last question, which is not, it's just as fun as the annex question I was posed, is dissolving the village. What does that look like, and what does that mean for the residents of the village? And then, basically, who gets the money, and can they provide the cops?
Bill, that might be
Probably has some
up your alley.
Disillusion is pretty catastrophic result. And frankly, my office has had the privilege of having discussions with the Attorney General's office and the Auditor of State's office about this recently. And essentially, if a dissolution petition were to be filed, the village would not be able to spend any money from that day forward. So you would have no employees, you would have no way of paying any bills, the village would cease to exist. you would have no one to fix your roads, you would have no one to provide services. I mean...
And if we don't pay our electric bill?
Right, things would go into default. Frankly, the Auditor of State's office said that they, for a similar-sized community, frankly don't know what they would do. It would be unprecedented and catastrophic.
Just to clarify that, there's from the time it's filed, not from the time that that it's passed by the voters, from the time that it's filed,
The day.
you can't spend a penny.
I think dissolution is more, have you ever had a village or anybody, like someone like, I think it's more for teeny tiny villages that just literally do not really exist anymore.
That's correct. It's not usually what you see with functioning villages with multiple departments and that have debt and have...
Electric departments, water departments, you know, we provide services, whereas some villages don't provide services. So,
maybe speak to that for a second.
Sure.
All right. And this is kind of some of the stuff that I kind of trying to make a point on. Say, for instance, the repeal, you know, gets certified, and we have to make that choice in 5 days. If next year, instead of a repeal, they do a dissolution or whatever instead, and the vote is still 60-30 like it was on the repeal, because no one's listening to them, what would happen?
Well, like I said, the auditor's office couldn't even give good guidance because they've never, frankly, dealt with...
There would be no vote. There would be no vote. If someone files for dissolution of the village, it's done.
No, there's a vote. It goes on the ballot.
it happened in Amelia. It voted in Amelia.
No, they did not. They voted for charter amendments that would allow dissolution.
Years ago, several years ago, they had a vote for it. And it failed 80-20, it failed not.
But at that point in time, was the village shut down because someone had filed for that dissolution? And were they...
No. Didn't really do much anyway, but I mean, I don't know the answer to that, so. But I mean, it's extreme.
It is extreme.
I would hope there's never a conversation about dissolving the Village of Bethel.
It's ridiculous. It's a ridiculous conversation.
Discuss.
1798.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think it would be tragic, and I think that the people who would suffer would be the people in the village, because when we don't pay for our trash, and we don't pay for our electric, and we don't pay for our water.
Well, we pay for it, but we pay for it in bulk. We don't have to, we have contracts with it.
Right, so I don't know if that would affect them or not, depending on how long that drug lasts.
You'd become part of the township. You'd be subject to the township.
And I also want to clarify what I was speaking about. My numbers are totally skewed. The deputy works, the Tate Township deputy works 60 hours one week and 24 the next. I'm sure he has a short night in there somewhere.
Not anymore.
Right, well, yeah.
Not for 90 days.
Not for 90 days, but yeah, he'll go back to Batavia. The sheriff's department, they supply a car for all of the townships in Claremont County. And so he was just an extra officer out there doing a very good job of some of the extra patrol, some of the extra contacts with people, and kind of take a load off the investigation section over there doing his Tate Township investigations.
So there is still going to be an officer in Tate Township, just not an extra one?
Right.
Okay.
There will be a south car, and Franklin Township currently has an officer that is kind of, they're trying to still figure out that, because the Felicity-Franklin School District and Franklin Township have shared a deputy, and so they're still kind of working out the legalities of that. Apparently, you can't do that, but they're trying to work on that. Williamsburg Township,
They do.
they do have, yeah, okay, and that, right. But all the other townships have, and then, I guess, but there'll still be patrol here in Tate Township.
I'll go back to you. You have anything else to say?
I believe I've covered everyone's questions that were presented to me in time to be able to ask them. The one thing that I can say is that I don't think anybody on this council has made a decision lightly. I know I've asked in the past about selling the utilities and every single scenario that has been presented to me. It has not been easy. My promise was to continue to look for a way without tax to fund a police department. That was my promise. There is not a way. You will either be taxed by the village, you will be taxed on your property tax, or you'll be taxed by the county. Cops are not free, no matter who says they are. And there isn't, no matter no matter how much stuff we cut up here, I think tonight's question and the answer session shows I still cannot do it without a tax. And if we don't have police, I would hope that the people who voted against the police will go out and patrol their neighbors and sign up for this Claremont Services program and go and visit your person on a regular basis, because the elderly people, they need people to watch out for them. They don't have a gun, they don't have security systems, they aren't ex-cops, they don't have military backgrounds a lot of times, they have dementia and no family. So that would be my plea to you as a village.
All right, thanks, Ms. Brown. I appreciate everybody's comments and great discussion. Let's get to legislation. First up on legislation is ordinance 1891. It's an ordinance setting rent for electric and water department and repealing all conflicting ordinances, and stands as a third reading. What would be council's pleasure on this?
I move we adopt ordinance 1891.
A second.
Thank you, Ms. Shepherd. Ms. Holyfield, is there any discussion about ordinance 1891?
It's not an additional cost, that's just moving the water.
Mr. Gilpin, call roll, please.
Mr. Coogan?
Yes.
Ms. Shepherd?
Yes.
Ms. Holyfield?
Yes.
Ms. Ross?
Yes.
Mr. Noble?
Yes.
Ms. Brown?
Yes.
All right, that is adopted. Ordinance 1892 is an ordinance authorizing the fiscal officer to transfer money from the electric operating fund to the electric extension and replacement fund, and this is repealing all conflicting ordinances. This stands at third reading. What is council's pleasure on ordinance 1892?
Again, this is not an additional charge.
No.
I make a motion that we approve ordinance 1892.
I second that.
Thank you, Ms. Brown and Mr. Coogan. Any questions or discussion about that? Mr. Gilpin, call the roll.
Mr. Coogan?
Yes.
Ms. Shepherd?
Yes.
Ms. Holyfield?
Yes.
Ms. Ross?
Yes.
Mr. Noble?
Yes.
Ms. Brown?
Yes.
All right, that is adopted. And this is ordinance 1893, an ordinance authorizing the fiscal officer to transfer money from the water revenue fund to the water extension and replacement fund, and this is repealing all conflicting ordinances. This stands as a third reading. And what is council's pleasure on ordinance 1893?
I move we adopt ordinance 1893.
Thank you, Ms. Holyfield. Do I hear a second?
I second that.
Thank you, Mr. Coogan. Any questions about ordinance 1893?
That's not extra money, right?
No, Mr. Gilpin, these are what?
The first two are, one of the things that came out of the fiscal emergency was that way back when the village was not setting money aside for long-term improvements in our water and electric infrastructure. The first two ordinances address that. We transfer money usually on a monthly basis from the water operating, electric operating to the long-term extension funds, and that is to hold back money for more expensive long-term permanent improvements to the infrastructure system. This one, ordinance 1893, by law, we're required to, this is for our water system debt for the water mains and the water tower that we performed a few years ago, and by law, we have to set the money aside from the operating fund into a debt retirement fund.
Okay. Any other questions about that?
I have one more, and I don't know if it's pertinent here. Our current water debt is from us having to borrow money, because we didn't have money for grants or anything like that, matching grants, and we replaced means all over the village.
Well, section over here, the western section.
What percentage
This was
still has to be
a low-interest OWDA loan.
Yeah, it's like 2% or 1.5% or something.
Like half?
1.5.
1.5.
For 20 years.
What percentage of that? What?
Those were just the large means that we needed to allow the two water towers to work together. So that they would balance each other and provide a better flow. Well, before, with the old tower and Tower Alley, the two towers were not really working together, so there was a little more stagnation in the towers than we wanted. They provided the pressure needed for fire suppression and that type of thing, but there wasn't enough circulation. So when we built the new tower, these meetings were to provide that proper circulation.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Gilpin, call the roll on ordinance 1893, please.
Mr. Coogan?
Yes.
Ms. Shepherd?
Yes.
Ms. Hollifield?
Yes.
Ms. Ross?
Yes.
Mr. Noble?
Yes.
Ms. Brown?
Yes.
All right, that's adopted. Ordinance 1894 is an ordinance authorizing the fiscal officer to transfer money from the water revenue fund to the water infrastructure replacement fund, and this stands as a third reading. What is council's pleasure on 1894?
I move we adopt ordinance 1894.
Second.
All right, Ms. Shepherd and Mr. Noble. Any discussion about 1894?
What's the difference between it and 1893?
Actually, I misspoke. This is the one for the water debt. 1893 was to the water long-term.
The first one was the rent.
Yes. Ordinance 1891 is department rents, and that is
Right.
fees that go from water and electric to the general fund. That goes back probably 100 years, I don't know.
So 1894 is the one.
1894 is the one. The water infrastructure replacement fund is the debt fund. 92 and 93 were for the long-term replacement needs of the infrastructure.
Future needs. Okay.
Any other questions? All right, Mr. Gilpin, call the roll, please.
Mr. Coogan?
Yes.
Ms. Shepherd?
Yes.
Ms. Hollifield?
Yes.
Ms. Ross?
Yes.
Mr. Noble?
Yes.
Ms. Brown?
Yes.
All right, ordinance 1894 is adopted. That brings us to ordinance 1895. It's an ordinance confirming Joseph Candido as magistrate. This stands a second reading. Ordinance 1896 is an ordinance authorizing the retention of Keith C. Foreman as prosecutor to provide prosecutorial services for the Village of Bethel, Ohio. This stands a second reading. Ordinance 1897 is annual appropriations for ordinance, and must we waive the three on this, Mr. Gilpin?
Yes.
Okay, I entertain a motion to waive the three on ordinance 1897.
I move we waive the three reading rule on ordinance 1897.
Okay, do I hear a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Ms. Shepherd and Ms. Holyfield. Mr. Gilpin, call the roll, please.
Mr. Coogan?
Yes.
Ms. Shepherd?
Yes.
Ms. Hollifield?
Yes.
Ms. Ross?
Yes.
Mr. Noble?
Yes.
Ms. Brown?
Yes.
All right, now to adopt ordinance 1897, I entertain a motion.
I move we adopt ordinance 1897.
Thank you, Ms. Holyfield. Do I hear a second?
Second that.
I heard Ms. Shepherd first. Any questions about ordinance 1897?
Is there any additional cost to the village?
Now, what is this, Mr. Gilpin?
This is what I spoke to earlier about raising the $100,000 so we could pay our last bulk electric bill in December. It does not raise a cost, and it's a bill we're going to have to pay. We just didn't have enough money on the appropriations.
All right.
And I'm having a little difficulty saving this one for some reason.
There's no other earmarked money adjustments or anything for any kind of grant matches or anything like that in this?
No, this is our monthly bill that we pay American Electric for our bulk electric that we buy. The sales have been up 3 to 4% all year, and the line came up a little short for paying the last, but we're not going to have enough money on that line to pay it in December.
The revenue was up accordingly.
Right.
We just have to allow for that appropriation.
Right, I just wanted to make sure that was the only line that was changing.
That's it.
Okay.
And all the appropriations, I mean, the ordinance shows every line, but I highlighted it. You should see there's the only one that was yellow in the entire document. And I was having trouble with the software, so can I know who made the motion and who seconded it?
I think I made it, and Ms. Shepherd
Ms.
seconded it.
Ms. Shepherd?
Okay.
When you're ready, Bill, you can call the roll.
Okay, there we go. Mr. Coogan?
Yes.
Ms. Shepherd?
Yes.
Ms. Hollifield?
Yes.
Ms. Ross?
Yes.
Mr. Noble?
Yes.
Ms. Brown?
Yes.
All right, that is adopted. Resolution 1022 is a resolution establishing wages and salaries for the village employees of Bethel. For 2019, it stands as a second reading. And Resolution 1024 is a resolution requesting the Claremont County Auditor to advance taxes and assessments from the proceeds of tax levies pursuant to Section 321.34 of the Ohio Revised Code. That stands as a second reading. This brings us to approval of expenses. I trust you all have seen the expenses.
Oh, yeah,
The
great.
grant, that's what I was thinking about.
Yeah, it's not on there. That's,
Dispatched.
He's waiting for Travis's thing.
No, I don't see that. That's the list.
Do we have to have that done tonight?
Yeah, it's got to be approved before the 16th.
Do you have a copy of the grant? Or a copy of the ordinance, I mean? This is the grant for the playground equipment?
Yes.
And we're on a roll there.
I've got it, I mean, do I need to send it?
Let me see.
Is this the same one we had on last night? Is it the same one we had on last night?
An ordinance or
It's
resolution?
a resolution.
It's going to be 1025.
I can just read it aloud. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay, what's the resolution number?
1025.
So resolution number 1025, a resolution authorizing the village administrator to prepare and submit an application with the Ohio Department of Natural Resources for financial assistance under the Land and Water Conservation Fund. Whereas the Village of Bethel desires financial assistance under the Land and Water Conservation Fund, now therefore be it resolved by the Council of the Village of Bethel, Claremont County, Ohio, that Section 1, that the Council of the Village of Bethel approves filing an application for financial assistance. Section 2, that the village administrator is authorized and directed to execute and file an application with the Ohio Department of Natural Resources and to provide all information and documentation required to become eligible for possible funding assistance. Section 3, that the Village of Bethel does agree to obligate funds required to satisfactorily complete the proposed project and become eligible for reimbursement under the terms of the Land and Water Conservation Fund. Adopted November 8th.
All right, that's the ordinance. What's the nuts and, well, we need, I guess, to have, we need to waive the 5, waive the 3. I did it. I did it.
We were doing so good.
All right, I'm entertaining a motion to waive the 3 on ordinance 1025.
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All right, Ms. Shepherd, Ms. Hollyfield, can you call roll, please, Mr. Gilpin?
Mr. Coogan?
Yes.
Ms. Shepherd?
Yes.
Ms. Hollifield?
Yes.
Ms. Ross?
Yes.
Mr. Noble?
No.
Ms. Brown?
This is how we can discuss it, it's not passing it?
Yes.
This has to get it to that.
Yes.
All right, so that is, we're waiving the 3. Now, I'd entertain a motion to adopt Resolution 1025.
I'll move we adopt Resolution 1025.
Thank you, Ms. Shepherd. Do I hear a second?
A second.
Thank you, Ms. Hollyfield. Questions, discussion?
I'm just gonna be honest, we can't pay for police, we can't pay for a park to be upgraded, in my opinion.
But isn't this just asking for money?
Nope, we're
Do we have to
matching.
match?
We have to
That
match.
was
It's a 50-50 match, so it would be 50,000 matched by the village. Half of that, we'll request half of that to be funded by Burke Trust in 2019.
That's not the language that the resolution reads.
Well, no, Burke Trust is still, that's separate from this. We're still matching, we're matching 50%. How much of that is out of the general fund and how much of that is provided by Burke Trust is separate from the resolution, but that's correct.
So if we applied for the grant and we asked Burke Trust for the entire 50,000, and they said no,
I guess we could.
and they said no, then what happens?
Well,
Nothing?
if council unanimously, it's for Burke Park, right? It would be, the Burke Trust would be required to provide it,
If it's unanimous.
yes.
Any other questions about 1025?
I just want to make a comment. I would hope that if we're asking for money for playground equipment for, is it 2 to 5-year-old children?
2 different ages, right?
That's correct. The first section is for 5 to 12-year-olds, and this will be for the 2 to 5. It's a smaller area playground that has the canopies that will go around them as well.
This is the kind of things you can't provide for your community when you don't have the income tax. You can't get grant money because you don't have the funds to match it. That's what people don't realize. You want these things in your community, but you don't want to pay for them.
Things like this is what brings people into this community.
Sure.
It grows it.
Families. New families want to come and go to our school system that's rated so great and.
That's just some things that some people don't care about, though.
Well, this is the first year that the general fund has been in a position where we can apply for grants that required matches with the general fund.
So what is our status of the Burke Park Trust as far as money is concerned, what this would do if we unanimously yanked it out of there and, you know?
Well, they have about 75,000 a year that they can give to us. This would take a large chunk of that.
How much have they already given?
Which, knowing that we usually earmark $20,000.
Obviously, 2019.
We usually earmark $20,000 for scholarships.
But they can actually take more than that.
They
If
can.
necessary, if they want to. It's possible, it's not, it's never really, I think, been done, but I think it's possible.
I don't think that had to be because the interest rates were so great, they were getting so much money.
Yeah.
I believe the tennis court.
Right, they dipped into
that corpus, a little bit for that one.
And I would hope, since the Burke Trust was set in place and given that money to spend for the good of the entire village of Bethel, not just for the park, but for the village. They could buy our police cruisers if we asked them, and if they were so inclined to give us the money. Sorry.
When we will have another vote on asking
Yes.
for it.
Burke Trust.
So if you file the application, everything's approved, you got all the documents in a row, then we will be able to vote again for where the money comes from, right?
Well, this is just applying for the grant, correct?
Before we can spend that
I don't
kind of
even get it.
money, because it's a $100,000 expenditure, council has to approve that expenditure.
Okay. I just wanna make sure everybody understands.
Administrator does not have the authority to spend that kind of money.
And that's what we're doing. We're giving him the authority
You're giving him the authority to
apply for it.
And once he gets the money, he would request bids on the item, and then at that point, council would have the authority to say up or down.
You know, there's a possibility we might not even get the grant, so.
Right, so it's not
Okay.
tying us money-wise into it, because I'll be honest, if it's coming out of our general fund, I'd rather pay $50,000 towards our cops than.
I would agree. I would agree. All right, any more discussion about it? Mr. Gilpin, call the roll, please.
Mr. Dugan?
Yes.
Ms. Shepherd?
Yes.
Ms. Hallfield?
Yes.
Ms. Ross?
Yes.
Mr. Noble?
Yes.
Ms. Brown?
Yes.
All right, now do we need to,
No.
okay, good. 1025 is adopted. Now, that brings us to approval of expenses. I trust you all have seen our expenses. Any questions about them, discussion? If not, I'd entertain a motion to approve those as read.
I move we approve the expenses as written.
Thank you, Ms. Shepherd. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Ms. Ross. Mr. Gilpin, call the roll, please.
Mr. Cooney?
Yes.
Ms. Shepherd?
Yes.
Ms. Hallfield?
Yes.
Ms. Ross?
Yes.
Mr. Noble?
Yes.
Ms. Brown?
Yes.
All right, that brings us to payment of the bills.
I move we pay the bills.
Thank you, Ms. Hallfield. Do I hear a second?
I will second that.
Thank you, Ms. Shepherd. Mr. Gilpin, call the roll, please.
Sorry, I was getting the software to catch up. Can I hear who made that motion and second that one, please?
Ms. Hallfield, Ms. Shepherd.
I second it.
No. Was it Ms. Ross? No.
No, that was the last one.
Okay.
No. Okay, here we go. Mr. Coogan?
Yes.
Ms. Shepherd?
Yes.
Ms. Hallfield?
Yes.
Ms. Ross?
Yes.
Mr. Noble?
Yes.
Ms. Brown?
Yes.
And that brings us to our favorite time of the meeting, adjournment.
No, we have
Let's do
executive session.
executive session first.
I don't know why that's on there.
The software, we need a placeholder, just so that if we need to go into executive
Oh,
session.
we're not really going into executive session. Okay.
I move we adjourn.
I'm thankful.
Second that. Sorry.
I got a motion to adjourn. Do I hear a second?
Second.
She seconded it.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. We're adjourned. Thank you.
So tired from yesterday. You're jet lagged.